A cryptic tweet has XRP holders like me on high alert. I've held XRP through insane ups and downs, even before that SEC lawsuit drama, and what I just discovered gave me some serious goosebumps. Now, I'm about to take you on a personal journey through my quest to decode this mysterious Watch XRP message. So by the end of this story, you're going to see why this week could actually be a make or break moment for XRP, and why I'm both excited and a little nervous about what's coming. Now, we're going to be talking wild predictions from veteran analysts, sneaky moves by crypto whales, and even AI chiming in on XRP's future. So yeah, you might want to stick around for this. All right, let's rewind a little bit here, right? It was a typical Monday morning. I'm sipping on my coffee, scrolling through X, formerly Twitter, when I see a post from Michael XBT. Now, if you don't know Michael, he's a veteran trader who calls himself a market psychologist. Basically, the dude has a knack for reading market psychology and price charts like they're children's books. Now, his post was short and, well, cryptic. All he wrote was, "Watch XRP this week." That's it. There was no explanation, there was no follow-up, just watch XRP this week. Now, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what does he actually know that I don't? Because if you, at least because you don't just drop a hint like that unless you've actually got something up your sleeve, right? And Michael isn't your kind of run-of-the-mill Twitter shill either. He at least has a bit of a track record. Now, let me put it this way. The guy has made some pretty bold calls in the past that ended up spot on. So here's a quick flashback. Back in mid-2024, XRP was chilling around 50 cents. Sentiment was, well, meh, and a lot of people had written it off. Michael comes out and says he sees a historical 7-year bull pennant pattern on the charts, and that XRP could break out of it. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I rolled my eyes a little bit. 7 years, bull pennant, kind of sounded like just hopium, right? But guess what? Just a few months later, boom, XRP went on an absolute tear, shooting up nearly 600%, hitting around $3.40 by January of 2025. Now, I remember that rally quite vividly because my phone just kept blowing up with the price alerts, and I had this mix of euphoria and finally, right? After holding for so long, right? Now, Michael's wild prediction was totally vindicated. Now, since that peak, XRP has consolidated and been hovering around the $2 and some change area, kind of like catching its breath after that massive run. And you know what Michael just said about that? He kept reassuring everyone that this pullback was, well, healthy, right? Like a market equivalent of just taking a breather after sprinting a marathon. He also hinted that because apparently he loves being mysterious, that the next big XRP surge would probably line up with major Bitcoin breakout. So you know how Bitcoin kind of leads the crypto pack, right? At least sometimes. So if Big Daddy BTC starts roaring, historically, a lot of altcoins, including XRP, ride the slipstream. So when Michael drops a watch XRP this week, I'm immediately thinking, is Bitcoin about to do something crazy? Is XRP about to piggyback? Is this the moment that he's been hinting at? Now, I was buzzing with curiosity here, and being the reasonable kind of, at least responsible kind of sloth that I am, I didn't just stop at Michael's tweet. I went deeper down the rabbit hole. Turns out that Michael isn't the only one eyeballing XRP right now. A bunch of other analysts are coming out of the woodwork with bullish takes. It's like they all woke up with the same gut feeling. For example, there's this analyst who goes by the name of Satoshi. No relation to that Satoshi, at least as far as I know. Just a few days ago, right, Davie pointed out something about XRP's chart that made my ears kind of perk up. Now, an Elliott wave structure. Now, I am a bit of an Elliott wave expert myself, and those patterns can look, a bit like abstract art to some, but the gist of it is this. He thinks that XRP is entering something called the wave 3 of a big cycle. And historically, wave 3 is the monster wave, and the one where things really do go parabolic. Basically, if he's right, we might be on the cusp of one of XRP's most powerful breakout phases. When I read that, I kind of sat back and thought, that lines up pretty well with what Michael is saying. Coincidence? Or are these guys onto something? Then, another voice joins the chorus, an analyst known as Dark Defender. Now, I actually kind of chuckled at the name. It sounds a bit like a comic book character, right? But his analysis is no joke. Now, according to him, XRP has completed what is known as a wave 4 correction. Think of the wave 4 like kind of taking a pit stop, and the race car, the XRP in this case, slowed down a little bit, maybe changed its tires, refueled, and now is gearing up for the wave 5, right? The next kind of big leg of the race. Now, Dark Defender's view is that this wave 5 could potentially launch XRP to around $4.50. as the kind of long as we kind of don't drop below the key support levels of roughly $2.85. At least at the time of reading his take, XRP was chilling around $2.93, which is pretty darn close to that support. So in other words, he's saying as long as the floor holds, we're going up. And $4.50 would be the highest price that we've seen in, well, ever, I think. And it certainly would be higher than the $3.40 rally that we saw in January. Now, it didn't stop there either. Yet another analyst, calls himself, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗋, popped up on my feed with more optimism. Now, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗋 is all about those technical indicators. He pointed out that the monthly chart, XRP is actually holding above something called the 21 EMA. That's the exponential moving average. Now, I know that not everyone kind of geeks out about moving averages, but staying above an important one is usually a bullish sign. Kind of like saying the trend is still on our friends, right? Now, 𝗗𝗋𝘋 is kind of eyeballing $3.90 as a short-term target, which is in the kind of same ballpark as Dark Defender's prediction. But then he thinks it goes on to a longer-term potential, up towards $46. Yeah. $46. I had to double check that because, it's such a kind of whopping number. So when I saw $46, I legitimately almost spat out my coffee. Now, I literally went, $46? What are we actually talking about? Are we talking about the same XRP that's under $3 right now? That's more than a 15x from the current price. Even my inner optimist was like, okay, let's not get too carried away here. But hey, it's out there, and some people truly believe that XRP could reach those heights in the long run. Now, Davie Satoshi, the Elliott wave guy, right, has some numbers too. He's thinking anywhere from $8 on the low end to $30 on the high end for this cycle. So that $8 to $30 range is, well, still huge. And honestly, I'd be over the moon if we hit the low end of that. Now, Davie also kind of made a good point about, at least to justify these rather big targets. It's not at least it does not lines on a chart whispering sweet nothings, right? There are some fundamental developments that are also happening. Now, he rattled off a fair few. Ripple, the company, acquiring a firm called Rail Financial, right? Ripple launching a stablecoin dubbed RLUSD, the global rollout of the new ISO 20022 banking standard, which could be a boom for crypto projects like XRP, and even the fact that big players are filing for crypto ETF applications, some of which could potentially include XRP in the month of October. Now, all that real-world action could be fuel for the fire, amplifying whatever the technical charts are actually saying. So, by this point, my head was spinning, right, in a good way. Picture it, right? I'm sitting there at my desk with 3 different analyst reports open. My notepad is scribbled full of different price levels, like $4.50, $8, $30, $46. It's bonkers. And I'm feeling this kind of mixture of hype and caution because on one hand, wow, if all of these signs are pointing to, well, something big is coming. But on the other hand, it's kind of like I've been around the block, right? And I've seen things look incredibly promising and then, well, out of nowhere, the rug gets pulled, be it a sudden market crash, a regulatory smackdown, you name it. So yeah, I'm excited, yes, but I'm also telling myself, chill, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Now, aside from the chart wizards and their kind of prophecies, I also stumbled on some chatter about whales and even AI predictions. Now, this is where it gets a little bit sci-fi and, well, extra intriguing. Now, a guy with the kind of alias of Ripple Van Winkle points, for the pun, of course, notes that whales, meaning those crypto investors with massive XRP holdings, have been accumulating. Now, how can people tell? Well, we can track large transactions and big wallet addresses. Apparently, during the recent dip when XRP slipped under $2.70, these big players were buying heavily, right? That's often a telltale sign of a bottom, right? It's kind of like when you see a billionaire quietly buying up property during a housing market lull. They usually know what is up, or at least they have the guts and the cash to bet on a recovery. Now, Ripple Van Winkle basically called those sub $2.70 buys a bottom signal. And that gave me a little bit of comfort, like, okay, at least some deep pocket believers are backing this thing. And here is the kicker. Even AI models are optimistic about XRP. I read that people have been asking ChatGPT and even other AIs named Grok about XRP's future. And these bots, right, pulling from whatever data and sentiment that they've been trained on, have apparently been leaning bullish too. Now, I take that with a grain of silicone salt, right? But, because of course the AI can be, well, quirky, right? I mean, if you ever asked an AI 2 years ago, will XRP go to $589? It might have pulled some kind of conspiracy forum fever dream, right? But it's still kind of fascinating and kind of amusing at the same time to see AI basically joining the XRP hype party. Now, even if just for the giggles. Now, before I go down this rabbit hole even further, let me just put on the responsible adult hat for a second. Now, this one might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments are entirely your own responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, that's the disclaimer over. Thanks for bearing with me on that. I know it's a buzzkill, but it had to be said because, look, everything that I'm sharing here, the tweets, the analysis, my own story, it's all just information and personal perspective, not some crystal ball guarantee. Crypto will humble you real quick if you start thinking that you are a prophet. Now, speaking of humility, let me share a little bit about my own XRP journey and why this watch XRP moment hits so close to home. Now, I first got into XRP many years ago. Back before the infamous SEC lawsuit, I was kind of drawn by, by the whole idea of revolutionizing banking with blockchain, right? Fast cross-border payments, the kind of banking partnerships, yada, 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 right? And okay, maybe it hit by the kind of thought of it becomes the next kind of Bitcoin I want in early. I'll admit it, right? Early was, at least early on, I was kind of more naive to this, thinking every crypto that I'd touch was going to shoot to the moon. But then late 2020 rolls around. Out of nowhere, the US Securities and Exchange Commission drops a lawsuit on Ripple, claiming that XRP was an unregistered security, and bam, the price of XRP just falls off of a cliff. Now, I'm kind of talking from around 60 to 70 cents to like 20 cents in a matter of days, right? Exchanges started delisting XRP left and right, especially in the United States. Now, I remember kind of staring at my portfolio in horror as the kind of value plummeted, thinking, well, this is just great, right? They have kind of usually kind of invested in a lawsuit, right? Friends were, messaging me like, dude, are you seeing this? And XRP is kind of tanking, are you okay? Right? And some even kind of helpfully suggested that I should have sold the moment that the news hit. Right? Gee, thanks guys. It was a dark time, not gonna lie. Part of me thought of cutting my losses and moving on. But another part of me, the stubborn and maybe loyal one, said no, you got into this for a reason. Either go down with the ship or stay aboard and see it through, right? I chose to hold on. In fact, I even bought a little more during that gutter crash. Kind of like an in-your-face to fear kind of risky. Definitely. But I figured the upside is being right someday could actually outweigh this little kind of bit of extra that I was putting in at rock bottom. Now, you can fast forward through a pretty rough crypto winter and things slowly started to turn. Ripple fought back in court, and in mid-2023, we heard about some favorable ruling, a judge saying that XRP itself is not a security, which was huge. XRP began clawing its way back up, and some exchanges even had banned it started relisting it after the legal clarity. And by the time that XRP crossed back above $1, I kind of felt a sense of vindication that I hadn't felt with many investments, right? It was like, take that naysayers. Of course, I was still cautious, once bitten, twice shy, and all of that. So when that bull run in late 2021 happened, leading us to $3.40 in January 2025, I was ecstatic. I won't pretend I kind of played it perfectly or anything. I did trim a small portion of my bag around $3, just enough to kind of cover my initial investments and maybe treat myself to a nice little dinner, sushi ironically. But the majority of my XRP I kept on holding, right? Because this right here was the whole reason that I endured all of those bad times. I didn't want at least kind of peace out right when things were finally getting exciting. Plus, a part of me thought $3 might actually be the beginning of all the stars actually aligned. And right now, here we are with XRP calling off in the kind of high $2 range. And suddenly all of these signals and voices, Michael, Davie, Dark Defender, eGrag, etc., are hinting that something big might be around the corner again. It's almost deja vu, but with a twist. Back in 2024, hardly anyone saw that rally coming. I mean, I put many videos out about it, but they didn't get a lot of views back then. This time, a lot of people seem to be expecting a move. And I'll be honest, that actually makes me a little bit anxious, because if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that when everyone is on the same side of the boat, sometimes the boat tips the other way. At least temporarily. So it's kind of like the universe's way of keeping us on our toes. Anyway, here's how I'm handling it. I'm definitely watching XRP like a hawk this week per Michael's cryptic instruction. Sir, yes, sir. But I've also got my price alert set on my phone for key levels. You bet one of those alerts is going to go off if we burst through, I should say, $3.40 area again, right? Because that would be a big deal. I'm also kind of hanging out in our free educational Discord server more than usual. That's where a bunch of us XRP nerds are analyzing every tidbit of the news and every kind of squiggle on the charts. And honestly, it's nice not to go through all these nail-biting moments alone. It's kind of like having a support group that speaks in crypto kind of memes and chart patterns. I'm also hosting technical analysis sessions Monday through Friday for our members in the Discord server. So check it out. Now, I did make a couple of proactive moves just in case things kind of swing wildly. I hopped on BitGet, one of the exchanges that I use, and full disclosure, the link that's in the description is an affiliate link that supports the channel here. And I set a few kind of low ball buy orders. Why? Because if XRP does something crazy like a quick dip before a rip, well, I want to catch it. I've slept through enough surprise moves in the past to learn my lessons. Not this time, hopefully. I also took a peek at Bluefin, which is another crypto exchange platform. Again, the link in the description, that's an affiliate link that helps support the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. So I figure that it doesn't hurt to have multiple options ready to go. If one exchange gets overloaded or has issues when volatility spikes, I can jump on another. Plus, I'm a bit of a crypto geek who loves testing out new platforms, and Bluefin's interface looked pretty slick when I tried it out. So win-win, right? So anyway, I satisfied my curiosity and I have a backdrop plan, right? And if anyone else wants to try it, the affiliate link down below keeps this channel going, so thanks in advance. So yeah, I'm gearing up like someone who heard a storm forecast and wants to be ready with both an umbrella and a raincoat. Maybe it ends up being just a drizzle, right? Maybe it's a full-on thunderstorm of price action. Well, we'll see. But I would rather be prepared either way. Now, the big moment that I'm anticipating here is the climax of all of this. If you will, right, I'm at least is seeing whether or not XRP actually makes that breakout that everyone has been buzzing about. Now, maybe it's a technical breakout above a certain price, like blowing past $3.50 and never looking back. Maybe it's tied to Bitcoin, right? If Bitcoin decides to finally wake up from its slumber and sprint towards a new high, well, that could drag XRP's price up with it, right? Or who knows, maybe some huge news drop happens and like, surprise, right? Ripple announces a major partnership, or someone important tweets about XRP positively, or an ETF including XRP gets a nod. I don't have a crystal ball here, right? I'm just hyper aware that if something big is going to happen, it feels like we're on the verge of it right now. And if that moment comes, then I already know that I'm going to have chills. I'll probably flash back to Michael's XBT's little tweet that kind of started this whole scavenger hunt for information and be like, dang, the signs were there all along. And if it doesn't happen this week, or as soon as some people hope, well, I'll kind of sigh, maybe meme about it in the Discord, and hopefully continue holding, right? Because the truth is that patience has been my secret weapon as an XRP holder. I've waited years for things that never came as quickly as I wanted. So what's a few more extra weeks or months if needed? So as I kind of wind down this story, I just kind of want to be marveling at how wild this ride is and how invested emotionally and financially we all are. Let's think about this, right? A single cryptic tweet set off a chain of reactions, right? That had me poring over charts, chatting with fellow holders, recounting my war stories from the SEC saga, and basically acting like a detective hunting for clues about the future. It's crazy. But it's also kind of awesome. It shows how passionate the crypto community is, especially when it comes to something like XRP, which has this whole underdog kind of with a destiny vibe. Now, I'm not going to tell you that we're all going to get rich and drive off into the sunset in Lamborghinis, right? Though, hey, wouldn't complain if that happened, right? But I will say that moments like this, where anticipation is in the air and anything seems possible, are why I actually love being in this space. It's like being a part of a movie or a novel where you might just be at a chapter where everything changes. Whether XRP skyrockets to those crazy targets or just steadily grows, I'm here for that journey, right? This journey has taught me to savor the experience, learn from the lows, and not get too carried away by all of the highs. And to share it with other people, because honestly, it makes the whole thing a hell of a lot more fun. So yeah, that's where my head is and heart, right, is right now, right? I'm geared up, right? Cautiously optimistic and ready for whatever plot twist comes next in this XRP saga. So if you've stuck around till now, thanks for listening to this story. I hope that my roller coaster of an experience resonated with you in some way. Whether you're an XRP holder or just a fan of a good old crypto story, you can hit the like button and the subscribe button and join me on this crypto journey. You won't want to miss what happens next.